Hello, everyone. Today, we gather here to discuss one of the most important subjects in the status quo: how we can empower the youth and technology to safeguard worldwide linguistic heritage. This presentation is presented by me, Naraya Sajana Dipa Puswojo, and two of my other colleagues, Luneta Alea Putri Perbuito, as well as Nausika Bening Jihani, which will support our presentation later on. But firstly, let me introduce you to what we are talking about. With the rise of modern technology and lifestyle, indigenous languages all around the world are under severe threat. For example, let us take a case in Indonesia, where about 436 out of 700 languages in Indonesia are classified as endangered, meaning more than half of languages of unique and local languages in Indonesia are classified as endangered. While digital tools can help to preserve them, but they also can pose significant risks to them as well if they are not used ethically. So, language is not just about communication, but it is also tied to national identity and well being. Therefore, preserving these languages is crucial not only for our diversity, but also to safeguard our dearest essence. Now, this study's thesis is to deeply investigate the ethical use of technology by young individuals who can play a vital role in delaying the extinction of language. This research aims to reveal the intricate and dynamic relations between government policies and youth-driven initiatives, all while trying to leverage the potential of technology to enthusiastically safeguard these endangered languages all around the world. Now, moving on to our first chapter, the status quo. According to a population census done by the Indonesian Central Bureau of Statistics, conducted in 2020, now this census shows that over the generations, less and less people will have the ability to speak their indigenous languages. Now, let's take a look at the graph here. The most recent generation, Gen Z, has the least amount of people within that generation that is able to speak their indigenous languages compared to several other generations that has appeared in the past few decades. Now, this proves that in the status quo, in at least in Indonesia, there is a deficit of people that is able to speak their own indigenous and local languages. Now, sooner or later, this can cause the extinction of more than 436 languages in Indonesia. It can cause the extinction of more indigenous and unique languages in Indonesia, and we are here to try and prevent that. Because of that, we have identified several factors that can affect the degradation of indigenous languages. Now, sorry. Now, firstly, we have English dominance. Now, this is not the dominance of the country Britain. No, this is the dominance of the language of English, because the language of English has definitely been proven to be a worldwide language in status quo. Now, this generational shift is closely tied to the allure of English proficiency in the status quo and its association with global opportunities. Because, well, as I've said before, English has become the dominant language of education, commerce, and international discourse all throughout the world. The second factor that we have identified are migration patterns. As people move within the archipelago or abroad or between different places, they have to adapt their languages to the languages that exist on the new place, which means that they can't keep using their own languages. They must adapt and use other people's languages to be able to communicate with them, which could gradually relinquish their ties to their native tongues. And the last factor that we have identified is assimilation. The pressure to conform to the norms of the majority culture can be overwhelming to some young people, as they may feel compelled to abandon their native languages and to instead embrace the language of the more dominant culture, further diminishing the presence of indigenous languages worldwide.
Moving on to chapter 2, what can we do to help preserve these languages? First of all, we can integrate it in our daily life by conversing with family, friends in the community with these indigenous languages. Secondly, we can document it by recording interviews of fluent speakers, transcribe traditional narratives, and create multimedia content to further promote these languages. Next, we can practice by engaging with fluent speakers to understand the nuance inside of these languages as well as the accents, and we can utilize numerous resources by using language apps, online platforms, and community classes. Lastly, we can participate by attending cultural events, festivals, and ceremonies, as well as actively support programs but for language revitalizations. Some of the ongoing initiatives combines the efforts of both governmental institutions and private initiatives to combat this linguistic regression. These efforts primarily revolve around the language and database enrichment by employing innovative technology to safeguard and promote these invaluable languages. As I've said before, we can compile extensive databases of indigenous languages by including audio recordings, textual resources, and educational materials. In rural areas with a shortage of qualified language instructors, we can use video recordings of educators proficient in indigenous languages to bridge the educational gap. Moving on to chapter 3, we realize that technology is a double-edged sword that has been both beneficial and damaging to society. Digital platforms serve as havens for cultural preservation by enabling communities to document and celebrate their age-old traditions. This encourages cross-cultural exchange. However, this exposure to foreign cultural elements introduces a tension that shades the appreciation of local heritage.
Now let's delve into the drawbacks and the beneficial aspects of technology. Now we see that prominent languages thrive in our interconnected world and most often overshadowing their indigenous counterparts. Dominant languages, most notably English, have created a digital environment where indigenous languages find themselves increasingly marginalized. Now, English is a shared language globally, and we most often use English as the basis of communication. We communicate in English with our friends, although we are in margins of one another. Most outlets and news and viral videos that are shared globally are also in English. Now, this rapid dissemination of information through digital channels can lead to linguistic homogenization. But here we believe that the benefits that technology bring us by far outweigh the negative impacts. Now, with technology, we have online resources, language apps, and e-learning platforms that provide interactive tools to engage with indigenous languages. So it makes the learning process more accessible and engaging. Furthermore, technology allows educational institutions to build a more comprehensive language database and digital libraries, for example. So it ensures that linguistic resources are preserved and are easily accessible towards anyone who wants them. Now, beyond the formal education, we as a tech-savvy youth, especially as a Gen Z, are well positioned to play a pivotal role in the indigenous language preservation. A few examples of how we can do this is firstly, we could exploit social media platforms by creating or posting content to promote language preservation. Furthermore, we could even collaborate or make music and videos and movies, or we can collaborate with indigenous musicians and modern producers as fusions of tradition and innovation. Now, this has already been done in the status quo. For example, here in Indonesia, we have a singer, Denny Caknan, who sings mostly using indigenous languages. We have Bayu Skak, which is a producer, a very famous popular producer with millions of followers that produce movies and serials that use indigenous languages as the main basis. You might have known this, but Korea Rumit is basically a YouTube channel. He is a Korean and is living in Korea, but he is fluent in the indigenous language Japanese. And lastly, we have Arif Muhammad, who does comedy skits, as Mak Betty, who also use indigenous languages. So we can conclude here that our initiatives not only bridge tradition and the digital era, but can also ensure that these invaluable languages continue to thrive in our interconnected world. Through social media and creative content, we not only preserve our cultural identity, but also nurture happiness and well-being, together paving the way for a more interconnected and fulfilled world. Before we conclude with this presentation, I would like to represent my teammates by expressing our heartfelt gratitude towards the Busan Global Forum 2023 for providing us with this incredible opportunity and platform to delve into these vital subjects. We look forward to the possibility of future collaborations, and we hope that when the time comes, we will be honored with an invitation to contribute to next year's Global Forum. Thank you very much.